Okay, I am going to introduce our next speaker. I met Joseph Scheidler when I was a lot younger, when I was 24 years old. And he was, at that time, the executive director of the Illinois Right to Life Committee. And a friend of mine from my parish, Marcita Hecht, said, Monica, you want to go to a pro-life meeting? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? So we hopped on the L train, we lived in Chicago, and went to downtown Chicago to the offices of the Illinois Right to Life Committee. And it turned out that it was a meeting to plan a sit-in. That's what we called them. This was 1978. So that was my first time that I met Joseph Scheidler. And I can say that he is just about single-handedly responsible for my life of crime. I once told Joe that more than any other human being on earth, including my own father, he has had the most influence on me in my adult life. I dedicated my book to him, Abandoned, which by the way is on sale out in the lobby. And the inscription, the dedication says, to Joe, who set me on the path, and for Edmund, who came with me. And that would be my husband. There's not enough time to catalog the enormous contributions that this one man has made to the pro-life cause. He is a total giant in the pro-life movement. Creative, clever, willing to take risks, think outside the box, do things that nobody else would have considered doing, like running around I was with him running around, picketing Geraldine Ferraro, remember her? Wherever she went, we were there, or I should say Joe was there with his signs, right? It was incredible. The clinic blitzes that we used to do, the sit-ins that he, in the early days of rescue back in the 70s. He also has his book available, Racketeer for Life, out in the lobby. So let me introduce to you my mentor, my friend, somebody I just have such great love for this man, Joseph Scheidler.
Thanks, Monica. You know, when Monica asked me to give this talk some years ago, and it being put off and put off and put off. I was in good health back in those days. I could have run down to St. Louis on the road. But I had a little operation. It was nothing. But my son Eric, whom I dearly love, he's the director of the Pro-Life Action right now, put it out for the public to know that I was in the hospital. And so people don't know what to think, so I get all kind of prayers and I'm on all kind of masses set for me every day, which is good, but I'm not sick. So I came down here to St. Louis, St. Charles, to tell you I'm not sick. I may look like it because I lost a lot of weight, but I want to know one thing first. Anybody in here over 93? Okay, that makes me, teenager there, son, raise your hand. Well, that makes me the old guy. And I remember years ago, I went to a pro-life rally somewhere. It was in the very early days when I was just a kid. I started out at 47. Anyway, the man there was over 90, and I couldn't believe it. A guy over 90 is still running around doing active pro-life work. And so I admired him greatly, and so I'm very happy to still be out to the clinic. We were at the abortion show yesterday in Chicago. We had 6 people, and Anne almost had us saved. She got some people to take her literature, and then the pro-abortion desk escort tore the literature up right in front of us. Of course, I got paper over the sidewalk to pick up. That's the way it is. But I want to thank Monica for asking me this. Monica has been one of my inspirations. Her book, Abandoned, is the best pro-life book ever written.
Yes.
I decided first I would like to talk about Jesus in the movement. That was going to be my talk. We have to be dedicated to Jesus. Ultimately, it turns out that he is the one that we're working for. He is the one who says, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." Jesus ultimately is our goal. We want to spend eternity with Jesus Christ. So I went to my own little library and I picked out 5 books on Jesus. And I started reading them. Remember Guardini. I had Sheen. I had a book of different books on Jesus, and I started reading them. And I got the strange feeling that Jesus isn't that interested in being known as to being followed. He left lots of questions for us. He would say things that would leave us wondering just what he meant. And he left that. He left those questions unanswered. The road to heaven is nearly empty. There are few. How many go to heaven? There are questions that he left us to figure out. And getting to know him personally is almost impossible. He was man. He had a human nature just like ours. He was God. And yet, he grew up, he learned to speak his language, he crawled for a while, he had his food, he was a man all the way, and yet his person is God. And I happen to mention, as a human being, is he also a human person? And Monica Miller said, of course, I've been teaching that for years. But when you come right down to it, how did he remain a person and God, knowing everything and yet learning everything? And so it got so confusing, I thought maybe I wouldn't talk about Jesus except to say he is our goal, ultimately. And then go into some other things that my wife thought I should talk about. That's always a good idea. She thought I should talk about the children, Jesus and the children, because he was always calling the little children, whoever received a child like me, let me read some of the things that she said here. God's greatest gift. Here we are, meeting on the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Probably not a coincidence. We celebrate today Our Lady as the pregnant mother of Jesus, who radically altered the religious practices of the Aztec people, turning Mexico into one of the most Catholic cultures in the world. Although it's fast losing that. And then we go on about Christmas coming up, remembering God's gift of his own son to us, tenderness, hope, generosity. And her ideas are beautiful. But ultimately you come down to a problem of having having the knowledge you need. And I look at this room. This room contains more people who think logically, who know right from wrong, who know you can't just make up a truth, than anywhere outside this room I can think of. I would take this room any day for the rest of my life. Because when we open those doors and go back out, we have people who don't think logically, who don't need the truth, who don't want the truth, who make up the truth. It's crazy. The world is absolutely crazy. We are doing things that make no sense at all. You go into a church, you've got strings and ropes and papers and all. You have in art in Chicago, we have to sign up. We have to give us the name when we're coming. They give you a code word, at least for Sunday Mass. You have to leave immediately at the end of Mass. You're not supposed to stay and pray. We had to picket the cathedral in Chicago, Holy Name, to get the bishop to even unlock the doors. To unlock the doors to a Catholic church when we are under obligation, serious obligation to attend Mass, at least on Sundays. And yet we couldn't even go to Mass. We had to have it virtually. And if I heard the word virtually one more time, what does virtually mean? It means it's a makeup. It's a replacement for the truth. Virtual this, virtual that. And it's gotten me sick. I can't stand the word anymore, so don't anybody use it in my We do have the strength, though. We have the people, and the people in this room, I tell you, Janet Smith, when she was at Notre Dame, we had a ball. I was down there, I think, 3 times one week, driving down to South Bend. And then she didn't get tenure and had to leave. But there was a powerful woman and someone that I've always admired greatly. I don't have to say more about Monica because she's my child. I knew her when she was a baby. And we would go to the clinics and we would do all kinds of weird things, go around town, put up posters on all the lamp posts. Abortion kills babies, and we use the pictures of the little babies in the black plastic bag, which is on the reverse side of life and death. And I remember one time, it was a beautiful afternoon in October 1972, and there was a guy from the General Assembly in Illinois named Henry Hyde. And this guy was giving a talk because there were efforts being made to loosen up the abortion laws in Illinois. Well, I didn't know anything about abortion or Henry Hyde, but my wife had promised a friend that we would go. And having taken the vow of obedience to my wife, I had to go with our 3 boys. And we went down there. The first thing, when we got to the area, they handed us life and death, and they didn't want you to see that front picture because it's a baby that was salinated, and it's all red and bloody. And then a baby born at the same time, I think 21 weeks or some very early time that a baby could be born alive and live. And here was a baby that was aborted by saline in a hospital in Toronto. And so they handed it to you backward with the backside. On the backside was a basket full of babies, a black plastic bag. You've all seen it. And the one little kid in the corner of that plastic bag, the left-hand corner, looked like my son Eric's baby picture. And it became very personal to me. There was a beautiful little baby in a black plastic bag who had been aborted. Killed, murdered in the womb. I'd always known abortion was wrong.
abortion not only was wrong, but when I was in the seminary, we all wondered why it was listed among the sacrileges, along with hitting the Pope and tripping your bishop and so on, and spreading heresy, was abortion. A totally different thing, had nothing much to do with the clergy and so on. So I couldn't believe when I saw that abortion is a sacrilege. And when you committed an abortion and confessed it, the priest could not give you absolution until he had contacted Rome to get permission to absolve you from that sin, abortion. That's how bad it was. And so it got so common now that the priest can absolve. But it went to the bishop, it went to first to Rome and to your own bishop, and then down to the priest himself who can absolve, because it's so common now. And so I knew that it was bad, and I started reading everything I could find on abortion. And the more I read, the more I realized this will destroy the nation. This will destroy the people. We have accepted murder as a common practice. And that's what we have done. And so I decided it had to be known. If people only knew what we're doing, if they had the knowledge. But I was terrified to find out they don't care. Many people don't care at all. And those women yesterday, when we were at the clinic, when Ann handed this girl a leaflet, the girl was still in the car. They had not decided to come in yet. Ann handed her a beautiful leaflet about late abortions. And the girl, the desk escort, they're always dancing around, singing and making loud noise and laughing. And they must be bored to death. But they were, the girl and the guy came into the clinic, and they were coming, they took the desk escort took the flyer that Ann had given and tore it into little pieces and said, what was it? How can you read such trash? It was a beautiful flyer. Maybe we have some outside. But these are things that we see all the time. We see a lessening of respect for all life. For all life. You watch now, how many states don't have assisted suicide? That's in the air. I'll be one of the first candidates that old guy. They say, we've got to protect the old people. They don't care anything about the old people. This whole thing with the virus, coronavirus 19 is, I think, a plan. I think it's been worked out. I think it's having its effect. That's the way they want it to. They tell us everything to do. We have to wear these masks. You get 500 doctors together that say the masks don't do any good. It's like trying to keep flies out of a backyard with your chain link fence. I mean, that virus is on everything. If you have a dollar bill in your pocket, you've got the virus in your pocket. It's all over the place. Some people, we got to get immune to it. We've got to get herd immunity. That's the only way. We get rid of these other things, people get immune to them by being around them. This hole up in their house, and makes no sense. In Chicago, our mayor shut down the beaches for the summer. For people who could go out, in beaches, you don't all sit together. Usually have little groups of families and so on. It was shut down. The bike path along the lake was shut down. Stupid things. They're probably open now for the winter, except you have to stay home and think about them. So anyway, the problems we have, I've given a number of speeches in which I've told what brought this on and how we can solve it. and wrote the book, 99 Ways to Stop Abortion, and I rewrote it because some of the ways weren't working, and that we have new ways, and I wrote the book Racketeer for Life, simply to tell about the 27 years that we spent in court as racketeers, because we were keeping them from making money. Well, that's not what racketeering is. Racketeering is you're getting money illegally. But we had to go 27 years, 3 times in the Supreme Court, the only case to ever go to the Supreme Court 3 times. So it was fun sitting there, and of all people, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, while the opposition, the now representative, was telling how bad we were and keeping people from having abortions, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, well, in that case, Martin Luther King was a racketeer. And that was helpful. So I said a little prayer for our Reggie when she died, and she wasn't all bad. But we have a situation now where every day there's a new surprise. Every day something else to wonder about, and worry about, and fret about, and concern yourself about. And so we have to constantly be in the presence of God. That's our only hope. See, people are going through all kind of plagues and wars and corruption in government. Think of the Jews being rounded up for no reason at all, political. Think of when the Tsar got in 1920, 100 years ago, last month, 1920, the new Soviet Republic, which turned into, SSR, they made abortion legal for any